Microphone check. I'm just checking the sound out. Got a little time. There's a chat window. So if you want to say something or ask any questions, that's available. While I figure work on this thing. Wow, how's the sound coming through? Is it clear? Is it choppy? Still got about 3 minutes. Aisha, how's the sound coming through before I answer your question, so I can make sure that what I'm presenting is clear, concise, and audible? My personal take on the current event. Pretty perfectly clear. Great. About to get at it in 1 minute, and I'm going to answer your question to the best of my ability. Hmm. It is. It's 10:30. All right. Please share this. Invite others, because we about to have a conversation. The topic is called Cosmetic Consciousness. Now, in the past, we have done shows on Blog Talk Radio, and we actually covered the boys and girls in blue, conscious cooning, who should we follow, etc. The question that Aisha asked in the chat room is difficult because there's so many different factors and factions to what's going on current. It's political, it's judicial, it's legislative, and it's military. So we dealing with the 3 branches of government, and in addition, which is political. Because politics is not a branch of government, but it is the controlling factor of the judicial, legislative, and military branches of the government. So this problem, and it is a problem, it's problematic for those that are the recipients of the behaviors, attitudes, and sanctions. Truth of the matter is that it did not start with Donald Trump. It was not absent during Obama. It was heightened during Bill Clinton's term, but it can be traced all the way back to the beginning of slavery. In 1859, the westernized community, whites that were slave owners, had actually created a patrol factor to catch runaway slaves. I even posted up a picture of the patrolman's badge. I'm gonna see if I can find it in my phone, because I do believe I have it in my phone. Matter of fact, I know I do. And it's not gonna show it. Probably. And this patrolman's badge was worn by whites who were deputized to go after runaway slaves. They were patrolmen in 1859. The police were born from the current police department and state patrol that patrol the borders and perimeters and areas of the states that they're assigned. So we can find the existence of police brutality all the way back to slavery with the slave patrol. They would chop off the feet of a slave, chop his stomach out, slice him, hang him from a tree, die while he was being imprisoned. It's nothing new. Let's see, let's move forward a little bit. In 1967, J. Edgar Hoover, who was the head of the FBI at that time, on August the 25th, sat down and had minutes with some congressmen, including the FBI, where his agenda for COINTELPRO was to frustrate, stagnate, and eliminate Black national movements to prevent the rise of a Black Messiah. Also, in those minutes, he stated, we are not only going to infiltrate movements as they did with the Southern Christian Coalition. Those were the men that held the guns while Martin Luther King marched to protect him. He wasn't an easy target. In fact, it had to be someone inside of the movement that set him up to be killed, because the white man was unable to kill him on his own. And fingers have been pointed at the messy Reverend Jesse Jackson as one of the arbitrators of his betrayal and treachery, which led in time to his ultimate demise, murder, assassination of Martin Luther King. Not to sidetrack too much, But all this is important. But not only did they want to infiltrate these black national movements that were fighting for equality, because the white people of that time, which was approximately 40 years ago, 44, 43 years ago, they did not want us to share in equality in the 60s. This was in 1967, August the 25th. You can look up the COINTELPRO minutes from J. Edgar Hoover of August the 25th of 1967, but also not only to infiltrate these movements and cause them to fight and kill one another. And that was something that happened with the guy that started the Kwanzaa, had a shootout at the University UCLA. He had a shootout with Black Panthers and somebody got killed. And the FBI actually wrote a letter to Stokely Carmichael from the author of Kwanzaa, stating some foul stuff, starting an argument. And then the FBI wrote a letter to the guy who started Kwanzaa from Stokely Carmichael, and this caused them to beef. And so then when they met up on the campus of UCLA, they had a shootout and somebody died. And nobody looked at that time that the FBI was the ones that forged letters and sent them to each side to cause them to fight and kill one another. Alongside infiltrating and frustrating these black national movements, they also claimed that they would make these pseudo black national movements, which would have no economic base. It would have no structure to gain or have money. And one of those movements, very well of, because they still call that movement colored people. And just the name alone turned me off, like, hold up. If you really was about Afro descendants and really about equality, why would you carry colored people as a descriptive title to our ethnicity? And it's 2020 and you ain't changed it. You haven't upgraded your thinking, but you're asking your oppressor to change his thinking or their thinking. But you still hold on to the same thinking. Anyway, so they created a bunch of pseudo or hollow movements and put people in positions of leaderships within those communities or within those organizations, so that it was run by people who would respect and protect the white power structure by way of white supremacy. Sad part about it is I watched it happen in 2014 when Mike Brown was gunned down in the street holding his arms up in the air. The entire community backed him and did the same thing as a show of support. It was called the Hands Up, Don't Shoot movement. And it went widespread through the nation, through the globe, like this past incident with George Floyd did. But back then, something happened to that movement. It was supplanted by another movement that had a name for itself. The Hands Up, Don't Shoot was just a group of people with no organizational approach. It was just protest, raw protest. Wasn't no leader. It was just the people coming together in what I call unified pure unity. Unified pure unity, right? And it was effective to where they had to investigate the Mike Brown situation, and it did not go well, even though I seen Malik Shabazz and Mustafa Ansari actually do the best they can in Ferguson, Missouri, to help with that case. It was already out of control because the friend of Mike Brown had given a testimony that was exaggerated, and so it gave the devil a foothold to make his exaggeration an outright lie. There had to be some type of truth to what he said, because the young man lay dead in the street with bullet holes to the back of the neck, the back of the back. You know what I'm saying? So he was shot in the back, not in the face, But anyway, when they started their hands up, don't shoot movement, it was supplanted by something called Black Lives Matter movement. And it immediately charged the individuals in America that are white to begin contradicting the claim that Black Lives Matter by saying all lives matter, police lives matter, American lives matter. They had come up with an array of different lives matter to combat the Black Lives Matter movement. So under investigation, when I discovered that there was 3 Black women that were forerunners or leaders of that movement, there was also a white man. And that's one of the things people don't talk about, was the white man that was with them and how he got outed from the movement. I'm trying to find his name now. It was wild. They might have removed him from being discovered now, but he was disgruntled because he was very supportive of that movement. And he was thrown to the side, casted out for one reason or another. I'm trying to see if I can find his name, because this was whew. It was a wild story. I was like, hold up, why now would you ostracize him when you began? He was a part of your faction and you loved him. Yeah, they made sure he was removed. I'm gonna find him. I'm determined to find him, because he had a story to tell about how the agenda switched. Because originally the movement was not for Black lives exclusively, but it was for sexual freedom, because all 3 of the women that were that are the leaders of this movement are lesbian. Some call them feminists. I don't. I just say they're pro-female, but Soros, I can't remember his name, but he was very upset. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna make sure that I add a link into the comment section when we post this video up on YouTube. Now, to move forward, when the Black Lives Matter movement took to the streets, I need you to know that the looting and the rioting was happening immediately after the George Floyd died. People took to the streets that same night. It just wasn't being reported. But I went and I looked at what was going on in Minneapolis. They was wilding from day one. And because it was so many scattered cases of a few people doing the throwing bottles and rocks at police cars, they didn't want to report it out of fear that it would cause police attack around that state, and they didn't know that it would grow to the extremes that it has. So, of course, just like with the Mike Brown case, Black Lives Matter took to the streets, the peaceful protests, running up on people, telling them don't break windows and stuff, don't loot. And I noticed that the crowd was very diverse. Then it got worse. Then they started dropping pallets of bricks. Entire pallets of bricks off for people to go further. Other movements began to blend in with the Black Lives Matter movement. It started to blend in. Looters, no particular ethnicity. It was as many white people breaking into stuff and looting and burning shit down as any other nationality, including blacks. It was just mayhem. The entire time that this was happening, a bill was passed. It was created during 9/11 for Homeland Security to have increased authority for surveillance for individuals both online in the cyber world and telephone, social media, monitoring bank accounts for large sums of money being deposited flagged over $9,999, which would sleeper cells waking up. See, we so concerned about terrorists that are foreign that we actually were missing domestic terrorism. We were given pseudo targets to blame, like the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan that we see marching and shit today is innocuous as the Black Lives Matter movement is. The true heart or power of the Ku Klux Klan, those old men have taken positions higher up in this nation. They're older. They're not riding around in trucks with shotguns looking for a nigger to lynch. They did that during the 60s. This is 40 years later. They 60. See, they was 20 then, 44 years later. Now they're in their 60s and shit. They have moved out of positions such as in the police force and have been promoted in the positions that now sit in, what is that, the Senate, Congress, Capitol Hill, the courthouses. That's where they at. And truth be told is we haven't even begun to fight who we need to fight. I remember when George Bush Jr. stole the election by way of Florida, I believe it was in 2001. Al Gore was supposed to win. When he asked for a recount and was about to show how a bunch of the black votes were blocked out, Florida, which was one of the controlling states, which would have swayed the presidential election, Al Gore was approached by a group, by a few in authority, and influenced to drop his case. If he dropped his case, then he could win the Pulitzer Prize. No, the Nobel Peace Prize. He won the Nobel Peace Prize for global warming. And so I researched this Nobel Peace Prize for global warming that Al Gore won, right? And he had no affiliation with the scientific team that were reporting on global warming a decade prior. When they brought the information to Al Gore, it was already statistically and geographically proven facts about global warming. They done already did all the work. They brought it to him for publicity. They wanted to have it promoted. So Al Gore used his platform to do that. And he won the Nobel Peace Prize. That's called claim jumping. But that was the trade-off. Al, shut up about this recount. So he dropped his case of a recount to prove that George Bush Jr. had, abused the voting privilege to win Florida, right? And the blacks in Florida was outraged because their votes were not counted and who they wanted to be president, because they were voting, most of them were voting for Al Gore. So we got this increasing surveillance going on. They done passed the bill and we ain't even paying attention to it. That right now, it is a strong possibility that I'm being monitored by some house agent, not a field agent, of the ATF, FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, to see whether I represent a national threat as a domestic terrorist by the things that I present, and whether I'm inciting anyone to do something harmful to those that are trying to have this country swayed in a certain direction, for lack of better words. So Hillary Clinton is going to hit hearings. The reason why she's going to hearings is because they're going through her emails and finding that when international terrorists do something to bases, structure, or soldiers in different countries, that as the Secretary of State, she's supposed to record information that she receives from intelligence and also issue instructions to neutralize potential international threats. They go through her emails and find all this detailed information that took place for the fall of Gaddafi. But when it comes to Benghazi, which is a year later in 2012, that she had no emails of any contact, and her excuse was all of our correspondence with the agents was face to face and there was no notes taken. And the hearing officials had already made claims that she destroyed those files for a reason, because she was inactive in responding to those terrorists over there in Benghazi, blowing up bases full of our children, right? Full of the souls, which is our children. And she was inactive. and she destroyed those emails to protect herself from why she wanted to allow it. Let me tell you why they wanted to allow it. God. They wanted to allow it because of God. Some say it's the government of democracy. I say no. They wanted to allow it so that we could start a war. That way we could infiltrate Afghanistan. We ain't looking for Osama or nothing like that going in Afghanistan. We want God. We want the gold. We want the oil. And we want the what? The drugs. The Afghan gold. Afghan gold smack. Opium. And they had plenty of opiate fields. So we wanted the God, gold, oil, and drugs. That was the reason why she was inactive. So that we had a reason to go over there and bomb the shit out of her people. That's exactly what happened. Now, what does that have to do with the marches this day? Well, the Black Lives Matter movement did what they was supposed to do. They changed the narrative. If you look now, you're going to see more posts, not of black people getting killed, but of Americans having interactions with the police in a negative way. In fact, there's a 70-year-old white man bust his head wide open, and police quit after being brought to justice for it. Then there's another one of a young white guy who was a part of the Black Lives Matter movement march, how he lost the eye because they shot a can of tear gas in his eyeball. And another one where a white kid face was all bruised up and bloody because they shot rubber pellets in his face. And what I'm watching is a shift. So the next thing that happens, you think I'm bullshit. The narrative is shifting to being all lives matter. But never forget that the Black Lives Matter movement initially was about sexual freedom as well as all the other freedoms that the movement represents, which includes a freedom for black people from being killed by police. Now they have a NASCAR, Bubba something. It's car 43 being sponsored. Now is racing for Black Lives Matter movement. So now we've commercialized and monetized the movement that originally was supposed to be uh, protesting the police department's brutality. Here go the funny part about it. Even the police are marching, right? We love to emotionalize things and not look at the truth of the matter. The Black Lives Matter movement gained momentum back in 2013. They have not set foot into a city council meeting, right? And now, at the rate that they are recognized now, they have the notoriety to actually sit in a Senate, a House of Senate, and request to speak. And I haven't seen that yet either. But they stay in the streets and they stay getting infiltrated by other movements. There's people that claim or don't claim the Black Lives Matter movement, but they're spray painting Black Lives Matter on people's houses, on the side of people's businesses. And when the Black Lives Matter movement just so happened to catch them, the three leaders of Black Lives Matter, catching these Caucasian youth spray painting right when the camera's rolling. Hey, don't do that. That's not what we're about. Oh my God, power to the people. So I watch these theatrics. I watch these stage prop setups. And I wonder, are we that blind, deaf, and dumb? And then when I say blind, deaf, and dumb, I'm not talking about physically, but I'm talking about spiritually. I'm talking about an understanding. Dumb, like, I mean, blind can't see the truth, deaf can't hear the truth, and dumb can't speak the truth. Because dumb don't mean stupid. Dumb means the inability to use the tongue muscle in order to form words. It's sad what I see. Trump. Uh, this gonna sound crazy to some people, but I don't believe that Trump should be blamed for anything that's going on. Nothing, not a thing, because there is one group that has more power than the president, and guess who that is? Congress. And they have not moved to either veto some things that he done put into place, neither to remove him from office, nor to strike executive orders and martial law because they want it. So we see individuals tearing down these statues. And again, we're emotionalizing and sensualizing a struggle for equality. And for some odd of a reason, those statues are supposed to signify what? Okay, so these statues are ties to a racial injustice era, right? But the books in history class contain the same bullshit that you tore down in the statue: Christopher Columbus, Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis, uh, who else? Sir Winston Churchill. It, it makes no difference if you remove a statue or a person and policies remain the same. We let a person like they're supposed to change the system, but they can't because it was in place before they got there. But it's the individual that comes into office that's ready to change policies. The systematic racism that exists in the structure of the judicial system, the disproportionate rate or disproportionate ratio of black to white incarceration, sentencing, and housing is astronomical. Black people are only 6.7% of this nation. 6.7%. That's less than 10% of the people in the United States of America. But we outnumber any other nationality in the prison system. So the least is the greatest. The minor is the major. And these police precincts that they have are not in the rural areas where Caucasians live. But in black neighborhoods or the inner city, you can go 10 blocks in any direction and find a police department. The question that we have to ask is the police department there because of the high crime rate? Or is there a high crime rate because the police department is there? Because people break the law all over the world, but you're more subject to being caught, questioned, searched when there's always the presence of a police right there where you live. So I'll let you determine which one gives birth to which. But I do know this, that um, Donald Trump, he's not siding with the police. And he certainly isn't siding with the people. He sides with the rich because that's where his residuals come from. So he has to create what they need. Why does he want the nation open so badly? Because these Fortune 500 companies aren't running at full capacity. And when they're not running at full capacity, that means they're not earning at full capacity, but they're paying out unemployment. And they're breathing down the code. Who do you think finances the campaigns? Who do you think finances his companies? His movement. It's them Fortune 500 companies. They control policy. That's who controls policy. It's the people with money that controls policy. It's amazing how I hear so many people say we need to vote. That's just popular opinion. Those votes aren't the votes that make the decide or the deciding factor in whether a person wins a position in the office. It's just a census to see what we like, who we like. The popular vote pointed at Hillary Clinton, right? She won by popular vote. So how the hell is Donald Trump sitting in office? Because he won the electoral college vote. That's these people that are put in positions to vote. And the people that power their vote are the people with money. They the ones that finance campaign or donate. Somebody asked me, how in the hell did homosexuals get so many, or the LGBTQ community get Obama to do anything for them and not do shit for black folks? This black man in office. I said, man, y'all really don't get it. By the time a black man or a black woman gets to that level of authority, power, and recognition, they have already got a cream filling. And what I mean by that is they already subsidize their ethnicity for policies. See, because they're walking into a room full of people that don't want nothing to change too much that will affect what they have. No threat. So the homosexual community or the LGBTQ community funded or donated large sums of money to Obama's campaign for re-election. And by doing that, they won a right to choose what we have. What did black people donate besides support? See, we under the impression that support is what did it. I'm here to argue that fact. My personal take on the current event. Do you want to know who bringing about the real change in this nation? You ain't gonna like this. It's not the protesters. That shit did not work with Martin Luther King. With the bus boycott, 381 days, black folks and whites that supported didn't ride the bus. One fiscal year, 365 days, in excess of that, 381 days. The Department of Transportation saw a dramatic decrease in their currency income. And after a year, they buckled. They had to give the people what they wanted. It's about economical protest. But as soon as the Asians open up their nail store, their nail salons, beauty salons, barbershops, as soon as that happened, our $3 trillion spending power went right back into action. Then they start opening the malls back up. They don't some of the malls back up. We on that way. Nike got a sale. Never pay full price for Nike shoes again. Said what? Yeah, 40% off, 70% off. What are they doing? They're trying to rejuvenate the currency flow. So pushing all them statues in the water. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that's a beautiful exhibition and display of moving in the right direction. Here's an indicator. Here is a clue. But until the Department of Education recalls those books and put out the true history and holds themselves accountable and change, I don't want to hear that shit. I don't. Until uh, the United States Constitution removes that a black person and an Indian person is 3/5 of a person, I don't want to hear that shit. Until the laws are equal for blacks and whites for drug abuse, I don't want to hear that shit. Until the laws are equal for robbery, violation of probation, they give them the small end of the sentencing guideline and give them the low end. There's this guy, he raped 28, I believe it was 28 children out of the 32 children in his class. The majority of them was boys. He gave him 26 charges for sexual assault. 26 charges. And he received 8 years. This white man received 8 years for, for 26 charges of sexual assault on minors. 8 years. That's not a year per child. That's not 6 months per child. That's not even 3 months per child. 8 years. You know what they said? That he showed tendencies of autism. That's why they gave him so little bit of time. He molested, changed the lives of 28 children, and they gave him 8 years. Here go the funniest part. Nobody noticed his autistic behaviors while he worked there for the 3 years that he was there. Nobody noticed he was autistic until after he raped 26 children. Now he's autistic tendencies. I don't want to hear that shit. Every time a white man is charged with them heinous crimes like that, like mass infractions, shooting up a whole bunch of people at a school, raping 26 children, 26 children, 8 years. When they do that, the first thing that I hear is they victimize the the, uh, the person that committed the crime. I'm sitting here, I'm like, whoa, it just hit me. Every time it hit the news about some mass shooting, white man killed a black man, white man raped 26 children. The first thing that the media and those that are inclined to protect their own, the first thing they holler is that it's a mental condition. There's something wrong with them. Oh, he's got to be having a mental episode. I don't think that he is mentally stable. But the moment the black man is a victim, they criminalize. Oh, what? Yeah, look, they killed him because he was resisting arrest. Yeah, he was unarmed, but he wouldn't comply. He wouldn't obey. So look at his past. This is 2020. They go back to 2004 and say, well, look back then. He was smoking crack or he had a gun back then. Or so this is why they killed him in 2020. So I can't. They always criminalize the victim when he's black. There's always a good reason why somebody killed a black man. We just gotta find it. Well, let's go back a decade ago and look at what he did. Like that's supposed to uh, sanction. I don't get it, but this is what we're dealing with. So Trump's under fire because when he wanted to do that photo op holding the Bible up in front of the church, he ordered the police and the National Guard to remove the people from around the White House on that side. And they roughed up the people in the crowd and used excessive force and brutalized several people. And nobody's holding the president accountable for that. They're just saying it was tacky. He's going at Hillary Clinton because now she's a highlight of the news. Not being shown to everybody on CNBC and all that shit. You have to know what channels to go to and find out what's going on in her case. Not just with her, but her entire cabinet and all those that were supporting Cass. And I'm gonna tell you, it looked bad. The part of the sex, what was that? The sex trade, the sex slave trade that she knew about, and they can't find any emails on that, and she was aware of it. She's being attacked because she supports and loves Margaret Sanger, and Margaret Sanger is the author of Planned Parenthood, and she got her ideas from Madame Blavatsky, who is the mother of eugenics uh, in its rudiment form. And so we can see these misandric Caucasian women preparing people for slaughter and control population. And just to let you know, Margaret Sanger said black people were like pests that needed to be exterminated. And she was in love with that woman. And the women and the people that support Planned Parenthood need to be aware of exactly what they are joining and supporting. And just the fact that, well, that was then that. It's totally different now. You motherfuckers killed. With that shit. It really does surprise me. Um, but I think I took up enough of y'all time. But I'll let you know that the people that's making the biggest difference in this marching, it is not the protesters. Sorry, it just isn't. It isn't the looters that's stealing the money. It's the rioters. They're the ones that's making it big because they're tearing up property. They are fucking up the money. Simple and plain. Because even though it is hurting the community, most of them that's falling ain't black businesses. Just ain't. It's 7-Elevens, Subways, Foot Lockers, T-Mobiles, Metro PCSs. Where do they get their merchandise from? Fortune 500 company. So that's who's being affected. But only because they getting their insurance, right? And their policies that they have make our insurance look like nothing. But it affects those franchises because they don't have privy. They aren't privy to the size policies that those Fortune 500s are covered in. It's pretty much similar to the stimulus. These Fortune 500 companies getting $500 billion, $500 million per Fortune 500 company, and you and I get a punk ass $1,200. It's just like that. Like what we get, we've been out of work for 2 months. What is $1,200 gonna do if your rent is $600 and you're 2 months behind? That just ate it up. That's not covering the utilities, the need for food, gas, because ain't nobody staying in their house no 24 hours and not killing other people in their house. That's cabin fever. So that even that concept collapses under its own weight of ignorance. But anyway, I can tell you that current events, there's so much going on. It really is. But you haven't seen nothing yet. Wait till the verdict comes out on the officer Chauvin, whatever his name is, that had his knee on the neck of George Floyd. He gonna get some time. They're gonna give him like 10 years. And with the way the system is designed, and it's gonna really help him, is that they're gonna give him the 10 years. Because if they go any lower than 10, you ain't seen shit in the riding yet. But when they give him his time, he'll be going through programs in PC. So he'll earn good time. So he'll probably do 80 months off of 10 years. But then the 80 months will be broke down with good time. And he might end up doing 5 or 6 years. But the other three, that's where you're going to get lowballed. Those three, for their parts in it, they probably won't get double digits. Matter of fact, I'm willing to bet something on it. I don't gamble, but you can bet that. um, Hillary Hillary Clinton will get a scar on her history uh, within the high ups of this nation, but she won't do no time. She might get a little light fine, but that's what they do. It's all a show, but it's all in accordance. We're under the impression that there's something that needs to be fixed. Let me help you. The system is not broken. It's running like a well-greased gear. This is the way it was designed from its very inception. So let's cast aside the idea that we can ready to fix some shit. If you want to change some shit, you have to start with policy. If we don't change policy, it makes no difference what fool we put in that seat. It's still like changing seats on the Titanic. It's still going down. So I see no need for us to waste time trying to. Me personally, you can march. I went to the Million Man March for the 20-year anniversary, and it was emotion. It was as if I went to church on Sunday. And that shit lasted until I got home and it was back to the same bullshit. Now, you're going to have some statues missing as you walk or ride to some bullshit, but it's going to be the same bullshit because they would have to change the entire system in order for it to include equality among all people. And as much as we, the people that meet each other every day, we strive for that, it's not us that change it. It's who's in office. And we have this false sense of security in the voting system, which has constantly proven more than once belongs to them, those that have the money. It won't just George Bush Jr. in 2001 when he stole it from Al Gore. Pudding. Shit, we're supposed to be at war. Whenever you fuck with a country's voting system, you are that's actually an act of war. But we ain't fucking with Russia like that. And you wanna know why we not messing with Russia like that? Want me to tell you? Nah, I'd rather you tell me. Hit the like button, subscribe, because I'm gonna have way more videos coming. We're gonna have a co-host. We're gonna be bringing people on and getting their opinions and views. We're gonna get some people that's out in the community, that is in the conscious community. Uh, that shit that you're watching on TV is cosmetic consciousness. Uh, my turn is coming where I will be in city council, sitting there and asking the real questions. And I'm looking to see what happens in Minneapolis regarding the police department being disbanded. They're talking about defunding in a lot of different places. They're talking about disbanding police in Minnesota. Look it up. Just disbanding police department in Minnesota, Minneapolis. It's amazing. Well, look, I thank y'all for tuning in and sticking with me for this amount of time. And if you didn't get anything out of what I've said, just remember, think while it's still free. Peace.